Hi everyone, thanks for finding my blogs and my videos on YouTube. Now this week we're going to talk just a little bit more about resonance. In some of the previous blogs we've talked about very complicated things like law of attraction and quantum mechanics and subatomic particles, entanglement. But this time I'm going to keep it very simple because we're going to talk about people and we're going to talk about locations and how we can perhaps resonate with them. Now let's start with the easy thing. I think it's not too much of a stretch of our imagination to believe that we can resonate with certain people, because instinctively there are some people that we're drawn to and there are others that we wish to avoid. And whilst as we get to know people those opinions might change, very often they don't. And we do know that we have our own electromagnetic field around our bodies. Especially it radiates from the heart, which is probably not surprising because it's a muscle that works literally all of the time. And that energy can be stronger some days than others. And again, it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that other people will be able to pick up these levels. Not so easy to explain about locations, but I'll come on to that in a moment. Anyway, so I suggest you surround yourself with people that you're drawn to, which is probably what you're doing already. But I would also suggest that you may surround yourself with people who are no longer living. And by that, I mean the people that you might admire from history. It could be artists or musicians or great philosophers or politicians or leaders. It doesn't really matter, but there will be people that you respect and perhaps you wish I could have some of their qualities. So take that a stretch further. Try and visit somewhere where they lived or where they spent part of their life. As an example, I got this idea, I was looking through some of my old blogs, and back in November 2013, almost 3 years ago, I wrote about going to the National Gallery in London and sitting and meditating for an hour or so in front of Michelangelo's painting called The Entombment. It's the only one that they had in the gallery at that time, and it wasn't even finished. But I sat there and I meditated and I felt better for it. And the reason I went was because I was working on a particularly difficult project and I couldn't work my way through it. And I didn't really feel when I got home that I was any more able to work through it either. But the next morning when I woke up, suddenly I'd forgotten some hugely important stuff that I should have included. So that's an example of going somewhere where great people have been. And the other amazing thing is that I'm in another previous blog, and I'll put a link to that. I actually had the opportunity to play Charles Darwin, who is one of my heroes, in what was then considered to be a very small part in a very small program. But as it happened, this turned into a series of 4 programs in a documentary, and it went well beyond the work of Charles Darwin and is being shown all around the world. I never get told when it's going to be, because once an actor's done their job, that's the last time you hear from these people, unless there's another series in the offing, so who knows. But I was able to sit in Darwin's office. Now, the general public aren't allowed to go there. They're not allowed to sit at his desk and touching his pens and his books and his specimens and all the rest of it. And it was a wonderful experience for me. And I really did feel that I understood just a little bit more about his life. So that's people. Now, I did mention locations, and I mentioned the National Gallery. Well, there are places all around the world that have got particularly good energy, and you may feel it yourself, or you may read books and get this information from others. But there are beautiful parts of the beach, the woods, the mountains where people go to reflect upon deeper things. And there are very often places of religious worship, and I particularly like going to St. Paul's Cathedral in London, in the catacombs there. First of all, I get free music from the choirs that are often rehearsing, which comes down the grills from above. It really does sound like music from heaven. It certainly sounds like it. But there's a huge amount of energy in this building as, other churches and temples and all the rest of it. And very often the archaeologists find, when they excavate in these buildings, that of course if it's a church, underneath the church there'll be a Roman temple, and underneath the Roman temple there will be something from much further on, and so on. So throughout the ages these places have held significance for people for one reason or another. And I don't see any harm in visiting them, and maybe some of this energy will rub off on you. Maybe that's too fanciful and it won't. But either way, they're great places to visit and to learn a bit more about the history. So that's enough for this week. Next week, I'm not sure what I'll be talking about. It could possibly be about Michael Phelps, the greatest Olympian of all time, because I've recently had to write an article about him. But it could be something else entirely different. It all depends what the week throws at us. So whatever the week throws at you, I hope it's a pleasurable experience. I hope you get inspiration from other people, from other places, and that you get some great breakthrough ideas. So that will keep you busy. Until then, goodbye.